What is up, guys? Welcome back to No Reserves Football for a Thursday episode. This is going to be our fantasy/dynasty episode, and we are going to be talking about offenses that we are targeting from the AFC, players in the AFC, and some of their ADPs, maybe some values. Something I want to go over before we start this, and I'm not sure how many opportunities I'm going to get to do this, so I'm going to do it now, Alex. We are in a bevy of different leagues. I definitely don't do it as much as the top content creators I have seen, but we are in a lot, like somewhere between like 8 and 12 or something like that. It's crazy. So, people can be pretty hard to deal with, and I've noticed that over the last few years. So I would like to take this opportunity just to thank the commissioners, and specifically thank you, because the first Dynasty League that we were ever in, that's kind of been like my home league, and I'm not going to go through all the histrionics, but there have been multiple opportunities for that league to fold, and you are a big part of the reason why it hasn't. So,
much appreciated. Thank you.
Was that much? Is there any league you would like to specifically discuss, like the 32-man that you seem to be very proud of, or what is some of the challenges that come with running a league or commissioning a league? Because honestly, I'm a co-commission one league, and it's our home league, and honestly, I don't even do that much, I don't think. So, what are some of the challenges with running a league with 11 other people, 15 other people, 30 other people? Like, what are some of those challenges?
Yeah, I think it depends from league to league. For example, in our 16-team league that you were talking about, our home league, basically, it was also my first Dynasty League ever, that we have grown very fond of. It takes minimal efforts, basically. We just have to set up the draft order, make sure everyone is okay with it, check out on every league member during the off season to check if they're still back. Thankfully, recently we have kept most of our members, if not all of them. So very little turnover as of late compared to years prior. We also have to check for rules and so on that others might want to change, put those to a vote. Then the most challenging part is probably just setting the schedule. We have to work around the formula to basically everyone match everyone every now and then. It's hard because it's 16 teams, and we start the playoffs a week earlier than most to have roughly half of the league in the playoffs. So it's not that straightforward to build the schedules. I'm not sure if you remember last year, but it took quite a couple months, basically. I still haven't taken care of that this year, so need to get on that.
If I'm not mistaken, you completely revamped the schedule from what it was previous.
Yeah, I need to go back on our messages to find the formula that I set last year, so we can go back to that and keep the train going, because after a few years, I think it becomes something automatic. And then on the 32-team league, it's way more work because it's a salary cap league. So with IDP, which is defensive players, for those who don't know, and those leagues take a lot of effort because we have to constantly update contracts and so on, and we have to change. We have like a Google sheet basically with every team in it.
But I have looked at like a handful of times, yes.
Yeah, and then every team has like their players in it and their contracts and their cap situation basically, and you have to constantly update that for waiver wire heads and trades and so on and so forth. And then you have to be on your toes a lot because, for example, if an owner is close to going over the cap, you need to be on top of that because every move makes them a bit closer, and sometimes they might go over it. And that's not ideal for anyone because that then needs our intervention to maybe cancel a trade, cancel a waiver wire head, cancel a draft pick. That's not good for anyone. So yeah, that takes a whole lot more time than the 16 team league and any regular team league that I'm in. But it's a good experience, and I love every league that I'm in. So
Yeah, so I'm just going to say thank you. I know I'm not the easiest person in the world to deal with, so thank you to everyone that I'm in, and thank you to all the commissioners for all the work you guys put in. So I'd like to start off with that. Anyway, mushy stuff aside, let's get into some of the offenses. The first one I want to talk about, and we can transition this to different players, is we seem to be really, really different on where we think Jacksonville is going this year. Like, I'm really high on like just acquiring pieces from Jacksonville, whether that be ETN or I think Ridley at his current ADP is a little too high, but if it lowered, I wouldn't mind it. And Christian Kirk. Like, I don't know why. I just love the Jaguars offense. I think it's going to take a step up this year.
yeah, so Calvin Ridley, from what I see, is like wide receiver 17 ADP wise. And then you look at like Christian Kirk, who's closer to wide receiver 30. I mean, at wide receiver 30, I'm sold. Wide receiver
Yeah,
17 for Ridley, I'm not sure
that
because I think Christian Kirk can be a more volume play and make his ADP worth it. Yeah, I don't hate the Jaguars. I think the offense will be good. I just don't think it will be elite. But it should support two wide receivers. I mean, maybe throw a late round dart to Zay Jones, who was pretty good last year, and he has that Trevor Lawrence connection, and that
right.
still seems to be going on in this camp. And he's right now going as receiver 58. And if Calvin Ridley really isn't all that because he
Hello.
hasn't played football in
Oh,
like
sorry.
2 years, I mean it's a good dart throw.
Right. So I know there's a few offenses and players you want to talk about. Who's one of the offenses that you think could go a little bit under the radar, or a player on that offense?
I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about in the other podcast about the Ravens. I think both wide receivers, OBJ and Zay Jones, are pretty underrated here. OBJ is going around wide receiver 40, 41. Zay Jones about wide receiver 48. I think they can both excel their ADP because I think at least one of them will have a top 20 season. So both are pretty cheap. OBJ has the injury history. Zay Jones is a rookie, but historically around 50% of the wide receiver ones of the rookie wide receivers drafted in round one end up having a top 40 or top 38 season around that in their first year. So I mean, Zay Jones is one of those wide receivers. Jay around and Jordan Addison, KJ, and Jackson Smith and Jigba.
What is it about? Because honestly, we had this discussion on the last one. I think it's Rashad Bateman that's the wide receiver one on the Ravens. So what is it about Zay Jones that makes you believe he's the wide receiver one on the Ravens and he's going to have a productive season?
I just don't like Bateman. That's basically it. I'm just fading Bateman at this point. I don't think he will ever pan out to what we hoped for when he was drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the constant injuries and so on doesn't bode well for him. He's currently injured. I believe we talked about it the other day.
Yes.
And I mean, Zay had a nice profile coming out of college. He comes from Boston College, 88 percentile 40-yard dash with a 4.42. Then, I mean, he also has a 94th percentile college dominator with 46.7%, and a 29.6% college target share, which is 89th percentile. So I think it's a pretty good profile for a player, and if the offense really is going to start to throw more under Todd Monken's, I think it's a pretty good bet that is being drafted as wide receiver 48 to exceed his ADP.
So another player on the Ravens offense. You're a lot more bullish on the Ravens than me, but what about this is going to be bad because we were trying to find him earlier, J.K. Dobbins. Do you think J.K. Dobbins has a bounce back season in him despite all the injuries that has plagued him throughout. Because I'm someone personally, I don't believe in the injury-prone tag. I just generally believe you're injured or you're not. And if J.K. Dobbins is not injured, he's a very, very, very productive running
My
back. Good.
my question would be, bounce back from what? He never did anything in the league. He's like he has played around 20 games in his
If
three
I'm not
seasons.
mistaken, his last 8 games were very, very good. I believe he was one of the top. I believe it was a running back one, his final 8 games of the season that he played.
But he's currently holding out or injured. It's in between. From where we know, he's currently on the pup and he's holding out for a new contract. Plus, if the offense isn't going to run as much, like it has been implied by reports, I'm not sure if he'll have that big of an impact. And he's currently being drafted as running back 26. It varies. We have talked about it off the podcast. But we have some places saying running back 20, some places saying running back 26. So around the running back 2. And I don't think I don't think it's worth it because of the injury risk. I know you don't like to call players
Injury prone.
injury prone, yeah. But he has some injury risk. He has been injured every season, basically, except from his rookie season, in which he didn't have that big of a carry amount. He didn't have that big of a workload. So I'm not sure if I buy J.K. Dobbins. I think it would be an avoid at his current ADP. He has all of the talent from college, but he hasn't really done it throughout a season at the pros. So yeah, I would be out on him at cost. I really don't buy it.
So you're more on the Ravens wide receiver. You think Lamar is going to cut? So are you on Lamar then, specifically, if you believe he's going to pass more? Or do you think the less schemed runs is going to hurt his fantasy value overall?
No. I think at right now he's QB5, being drafted around 34 overall. That's behind Mahomes, Allen, Ertz, and Burrow. I think he should be drafted closer to Ertz than to Burrow. But Ertz is currently being drafted around 24, basically. So I think he should be a top 20 pick in most redraft leagues because I really think he will have a big impact this year and will take a big jump with the passing. And he still has his wheels. I mean, I think it's a pretty safe play to go as a top 20 pick, and he's currently being underdrafted because he's right around the player 34 being drafted.
Is he being underdrafted, though, if he's a top 5 quarterback?
He's a top 5 quarterback, but like 10 slots away from Jalen Hurts. He's being drafted right around after Burrow. Burrow is being drafted as the 33rd player. And Jalen Hurts, it's the 24th player. So I think he should really be close to Jalen. And there's a tiny bit of a value gap here, in my opinion.
That's fair. Speaking of Joe Burrow, like, can we talk about the Bengals offense? I don't know. I'm not sure what there is to talk about. So do you believe T. Higgins is over or under ADP? Because I think he's actually kind of over. Like, I don't think he's much of a value. I think you basically have his ceiling just factored into his ADP.
Yeah, he's right around wide receiver 13, which I think it's a tad high because...
Has he ever finished as a wide receiver 1? I don't think he has.
He hasn't. I can pull that out really quick. Let me check.
So if the Bengals go bonkers and everything goes right, whatever, Joe Burrow throws 50 touchdowns, that's T. Higgins' ADP right now. So yeah. And then that's a problem.
He has been a wide receiver 2 for most of his career right now. Finished
high-end wide receiver 2, but yes.
Yeah, okay. But it really depends on Jamar Chase. I don't think he will justify his ADP if Chase plays the whole year. Even last year, Chase missed a few games. Higgins played all 70 games, and he still finished as wide receiver 18 on the season, even with Jamar Chase missing, 3-4 games?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't think his ADP is justified here of the top guys. If we're talking about the Bengals, one play that I really like right now, and I think he's being underdrafted, is Joe Mixon.
Yes.
He's currently running back 15. I think he has a lot more than that to give. Just last year, he always gets the workload, and last year he had Samaje Perine stealing most of the receiving stuff. And with that, and with Samaje gone, I think Mixon opens up that possibility to get more receiving work. So yeah, I think Joe Mixon is a sneaky candidate to finish as a running back one this year.
Oh, here's the thing. Has Joe Mixon not finished as a running back one every year since he basically got the reins in Cincy? I
Yeah,
think he has.
around that, yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, I agree that his ADP is way too low.
Yeah.
Joe Mixon is definitely like
Running back 15, I mean, he's being drafted behind Jameer Gibbs, or behind Brees Hall, behind Travis Etienne, and behind Najee. I think I would,
there's no reason.
yeah, I think I would take him over all of them.
I would too. There's no reason. So, okay. Sell me on the Colts then. I am really low on the Colts. You seem to be high. Do you justify Anthony Richardson's ADP if you think that he's worthy of that? And tell me what Colts offensive players you would be targeting
I
as a
actually
result.
wouldn't target any Colts player beside Anthony Richardson.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
besides who?
Beside Anthony Richardson. Right now, he's QB 16, being drafted around 110th player. And I think he has the ceiling to finish much, much higher. I mean, Justin Fields is being drafted as QB 7. I think he should be closer to that because of his rushing skills. We saw how that impacts a player last year who can throw as well. But those rushing stats really can implode you to a top 5 finish. So I think he's a value right now at QB 16. But yeah, I wouldn't touch any other Colt. I don't think. I saw a really good stat the other day, but now I can't remember. But like most players, I don't know about the stat right now, but it really undermined the wide receivers for rookie QBs who run a lot, basically. And I don't think a wide receiver of those types of QBs has ever finished over wide receiver 40 on their rookie season. If not,
But that makes sense because those quarterbacks are running and giving you rushing production. So
exactly, and they are not as developed as passers, so yeah, it makes sense.
okay, so you just like me have clicked the abort button on the Colts offense on anyone except Anthony Richardson.
For fantasy, not for.
For fantasy. Yes, for fantasy.
I just want Anthony Richardson. Don't want anyone else.
No one else.
I mean, if JT comes back, I don't think he plays this year. But if JT came back, I would be on board. But
So-
even then, he probably gets drafted closer to a top 10 running back or a top 5 running back, and I don't think you would justify that. I mean, right now he's running back 7 even with all of this. So yeah, probably I wouldn't touch
He
Jonathan
can't.
Taylor.
Even if he comes back, like I have established, that Colt offense and that Colts team, I think is going to be a dumpster fire. I don't think the opportunity is going to be there, and I think Anthony Richardson is going to take away some of his touches just naturally. I don't think he'll get as much receiving work as he has previously, and I don't think the Colts offense will be in the red zone as like I don't get what's the case. What's the case? I don't get it.
I mean, I don't like JT at his current ADP because even if the offense is okay, then Anthony Richardson can still be a factor in the goal line stuff, and that draws away the touchdowns from JT. So I wouldn't touch
that
JT at the
With
current
Jalen
ADP.
Hurts and Philly. So yes,
Exactly.
I 100% agree with that. So the Chargers. So the Chargers are an interesting team because they're going to be a high offense. But how do you dissect their weapons? Like, where do you value Quinn Johnson? Where do you value Mike Williams? Where do you value Keenan Allen? And
I mean,
spoiler alert, I think Herbert is kind of low from where he goes. I think that's a really good value at quarterback. But go on.
I think Keenan Allen is being slept on right now. He's running back, he's wide receiver 19th right now. And I still think he will be the wide receiver 1 for Herbert. I don't like QJ, Johnston. I
Mhm.
think he's basically N'Keal Harry or a glorified.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm totally out on him. I think he's more of a body catcher. Doesn't get the separation that is necessary at this level. And I think we saw all of this with N'Keal Harry. We were in love with the profile of the gigantic guy who runs quick, but then his route tree is lackluster and he can't separate well enough at the pro level. And then his hands are dubious at best, and he has a big percentage of body catches, which don't translate well to the NFL. So yeah, I'm totally out on Quentin Johnston. I like Keenan Allen at cost, and I still like Mike Williams at cost. We have to endure the likely injuries, but he's right now wide receiver 25, and you just know that he can have those big boom weeks. So yeah, I think he's a good play for those, especially in basketball, for those boom weeks. I think he's pretty good right now, being drafted as the wide receiver 25.
I agree with you.
What's
What
your take?
about Herbert? Go ahead, sorry.
What's your take on Johnston, though?
I think you're a little low on him. Like, we said the same things for N'Keal Harry playing alongside Tom Brady, but at the end of the day, as I've said before, it's a duality to it. You need to have a good quarterback. You need to have a good offensive around you. And Johnston has the quarterback. He has the offensive system around him. He's going to have every opportunity to become something. I think you might be missing the boat on Johnston because he is fast, and yes, there are some glaring flaws with him, specifically with the body catching, but like, we're drafting Rasheed Weiss because he's on the Chiefs offense. Is there not a case that we should draft Quinn Johnson just for the sole fact that he's on the Chargers offense and he's going to be getting an opportunity on it?
I think we've fallen for that way too much. You know what's his best comparable player right now on Player Profiler is?
What's that?
Josh Doctson.
Josh Doxson.
Remember, that rings a bell.
Oh no, that hurt me. That hurt me bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 6'3",
Oh no.
200 pounds guy who runs a 4.57, a speed score of 98. I just don't love the profile. It's a big guy, and we usually tend to like big guys who are athletic and so on. But I think we will fall to the QB talk. So we'll basically be drawn to him because of the QB talk. And I don't think that's fair. I think he shouldn't be drafted as high as he is, and I'm completely out on Quentin Johnston. I think it's
Completely out.
the B word. A
A
bust.
bust?
A
Wow. Like John Ross bust?
no, like Josh Doctson, but bust.
Like Josh bust. Wow. Oh
Yeah,
my.
totally out on him. No
Holy.
one wide receiver that I'm in on though.
Who's
In
that?
in the same division, is a year two wide receiver who plays for the Chiefs, and it's the first early declare non-power five guy going in the second round since Devontae Adams.
You're
It's
talking about Sky Moore.
more exactly. I mean, the hype last year was pretty high. He was being drafted pretty high, and it's understandable that the owners are out on him after the debacle from last year. But I think these non-power five guys usually take a bit to develop. So, and right now, it's being reported that he's like the mainstay on that offense whenever they are on training on the camp. It's him and MVS. Then the Justin Rosses and so on rotate, and the Rashid Rices rotate, but it's usually MVS and Sky Moore. So I really think Sky Moore, it's a good value here. It's being drafted around wide receiver 50, and I
So
think that's insane value for what he can do on that offense.
I agree with you, and I am proud to say that I have a lot more Sky Moore value or Sky Moore stock than I actually originally thought I did. So, do you think we'll probably talk about him more in the NFC, but do you think this will be a similar scenario for JSN where JSN isn't going to get as much time on the field. He's not going to produce generally, and he's going to go into year 2 and he's going to look like $1 million. Is that kind of the similarity we're going for?
I could see that scenario, but I could also see him having a more immediate impact. Sky Moore was an abysmal season last year. I think he had 200 or 300 yards. I think JSN can have closer to 600 or 700 yards. I think the offense will run exclusively through the wide receivers on the passing game. Small add-ons by tight ends like Noah Fant and Will Disley. But JSN will be involved early, especially with the injuries to the running backs.
So you think Sky Moore is in a better situation, basically? Or, no, that's not what you're saying. You're saying JSN is in a better situation than Sky Moore was last year as far as his development goes and the offense he was in.
Exactly. I think JSN can produce right away, where Sky took a bit of time. And it's also, Sky is also from a non-Power 5 conference, so yeah, those guys usually take a bit. The competition level is very different from the NFL, while JSN was playing at OSU, so very big difference there in the talent. But yeah, Adams also took a bit to develop, and then he got it going, and it was one of the best wide receivers for fantasy of the last few years. So yeah, I don't think Sky will reach that this year, but I think he can give you a wide receiver 3 season.
So, do you know who else is in a good offense that we just talked about?
Who?
Quentin Johnson. That's all I'm saying.
Quentin Johnson is currently projected to be wide receiver 4, I believe, behind Joshua Palmer. Yeah, take that, Camp Pipers. Yeah. In the AFC, I also like Donovan People-Jones, for example, on the Browns.
The Browns' offense is something that I think is going to come back this coming season. So that is not something that would shock me. So why Donovan Peoples-Jones?
He's currently being drafted as wide receiver 69. And in the games since Deshaun Watson came back, he was at least wide receiver 35 or higher every week. While Amari Cooper took a bit of an hit since Deshaun came back to play. So yeah, I really think he's being slept on in comparison to like an Amari Cooper. He's being drafted as a top 20 wide receiver right now. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones can give you a nice little boost as a sleeper being drafted super late, and he can be a bit of a sneaky start late down the season.
I generally agree with that. I think that the Browns offense, because the Browns offensive line is good. Deshaun, if he can get back to Houston, Deshaun is going to be a good quarterback. The weapons are there. You have Amari, you have Njoku, you have Chubb. So it's not like Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be facing constant double teams. He's not. I agree, and I think that the AFC North this year in general, and this is why it was so hard saying I don't want the Steelers offense generally, because I think the AFC North is going to get in so many shootouts this year. I think a lot of really good fantasy productive players are going to come from the AFC North and the AFC East for that matter.
Since we're talking about the AFC North, one of my sleepers right now, going by ADP, is being drafted as a QB 22. But Kenny Pickett right now.
Oh my! No, you didn't just say that. Go on.
Pickett, he has that rushing upside. He has them wheels, much like the Daniel Jones. So some would call him. And with the weapons he has right now with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, and the running backs in Najee and Warren. I really think he has good upside here as being drafted very late as a wide receiver, as a QB 22. So very, very low for me for what he can achieve. He can give you one of those Daniel Jones type season where he doesn't throw for a lot of yards, but he has that rushing upside to really give you a top 12 finish. So yeah, I think he has sneaky upside. As we discussed, I don't like their offensive coordinator. But I like Mike Tomlin, and I think, as you said, that division will have a lot of shootouts. So I think Kenny Pickett is currently a value right now.
I am so on the fence with the Steelers because on one hand, there's this little voice in my head that says, "Do it, go for them," because you could get a very, very, very good stack with the Steelers offense, and if the Steelers offense hits, you're freaking golden, dude. But there's just so many things that I'm just like the yellow flags just go, oh, offensive line, oh, the coordinator, oh, like I don't know, I don't know.
I mean, their wide receivers are being drafted around the wide receiver 33, wide receiver 35 for Deontay and Pickens. So yeah, you could really get some good stacks here, and they are also going in opposite rounds, I believe. So yeah, Deontay is being the 77 player drafted, and Pickens the 85. So yeah,
And
you can probably stack all three of them, and I think it will be
if I'm not mistaken, you can get Najee in the second or third round too, isn't that right?
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, Najee is being drafted right now as the running back 11, so being picked around player 29th, which is a third round pick, I believe.
Yeah, second,
So
third round.
can be a pretty good sneaky stack here. It's a risky stack nonetheless, but if it pans out, I mean, you're golden.
So talked about this. So are you getting anyone? So another team that you are a little bit more bullish on than me, the Raiders. Are you getting anyone out of the Raiders offense?
I mean, I would say I have an avoid from the Raiders. I have Jacobs avoid because he's been drafted as running back 8, even with the holdout currently going on. And there's talks about involving the Zamir White a bit more. I mean, we have gone from completely opposite ends of the spectrum. I think he was being underrated last year, being drafted way too low because of the fears of Zamir White, and then Josh McDaniels might not play him as much right now that he was the coach. And instead of like he completely breaks off and he's the running back one, a running back one has never repeated since at least 2015. So yeah, and he's currently being drafted as running back 8. Even with the holdout, I think that's a pretty risky pick because the same concerns are probably here this year, especially now that he's on a contract year and the Raiders haven't shown an inclination to give him the contract that he wants. So it's probably more likely now that they use Amir White a bit more. So yeah, I'm completely avoiding Josh Jacobs as a running back 8 right now.
Are you acquiring Jimmy Garoppolo? You could probably get him as the fantasy quarterback like 30.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy is being underdrafted. He's QB 27, and I think the pieces are there for him to exceed that. So yeah, I would be QB 2, especially in Superflex. I think he could be a pretty good QB 2 to have right now.
Would you do the Devontae Jimmy stack?
Oh, for sure. And right now he's QB 27, but he's being drafted 44 slots below the QB 26, which is Jordan Love. So I'd definitely buy Jimmy Garoppolo at cost. I think he gets a bad rep. And then you can just pair him with Aiden O'Connell, the backup there, which I really like. And I think if he has the chance, and if Jimmy gets injured again, I think he can have a Brock Purdy-like renaissance. So yeah, it's definitely one of my late round picks. Dart throws to throw is to Aiden O'Connell, the backup QB in Las Vegas.
Of course. So we've talked about a lot of teams.
I do have one more that I want to talk as an avoid right now, and I think it's a bit of a controversial one, and it's Garrett Wilson, wide receiver for the New York Giants. Yeah.
Oh no, you were touting him all last year.
Yes, you know that I love them, but right now he's being drafted as wide receiver 10, and in Dynasty I believe he's wide receiver 3 in keep trade cut.
Receiver 3?
3, exactly, yeah.
Damn.
I think I'm completely out on that value. And the argument I hear a lot is that, I mean, he's going from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. What's not to love? But the thing is, Zach Wilson didn't play that much in comparison to like Mike White and Joe Flacco and so on and so forth, which of course aren't great QBs as well, but they had the volume. And he was a top five wide receiver last year in targets. I don't think that repeats this year. I think it's a more slow-paced offense. Aaron Rodgers likes to slow down the play, and likes to call his audibles at the line of scrimmage. And I think it will be a very slow offense. I think it will run through the run game a bit more. And eventually, I think he will come up short on this ADP, which isn't great. I think people will be disappointed with the results. The defense is good. The QB is good. The targets will be better. It will be a more efficient offense. But that translates to lesser plays. Like for example, the Green Bay Packers were like bottom three or bottom two in the last 3 years in pace of play. So yeah, I think it will be a better offense, but it won't necessarily translate to a better Garrett Wilson result in fantasy. And I think people are gonna be disappointed with him being drafted as the wide receiver 10.
So is there someone on the Jets offense you are acquiring? Is like an Alan Lazard? Is there Breece Hall that you're looking at? Are you worried about Dalvin Cook if you're going for Breece Hall? Like, is there a player on the Jets that you would target in fantasy?
I mean, I would be interested in Alan Lazard somewhat. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 52. And right now, I mean, he has that connection with Aaron Rodgers, and you know that he will target these guys much like he has targeted like Randall Cobb when there's no need, basically. So yeah, I would target Lazard at his ADP because I know he's guaranteed touches from Aaron Rodgers with that previous connection from Green Bay. But I definitely wouldn't touch Garrett Wilson.
Interesting. So, how are you navigating the Bills? Because the Bills are going to be one of the best offenses. Josh Allen is consistently a top 3 dynasty fantasy quarterback. I think he has 2 number 1 finishes in the last 3 years. So, how are you navigating the Bills offense? Is obviously Stephon Diggs is great, but is Gabe Davis good? Is he overdrafted? What do you think about James Cook, Dalvin Cook's brother? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, Gabe Davis has constantly been. We have been trying to make him a thing for a while now, and I don't think he's all that. You can probably look at the tight end in Dalton Kincaid, but my target would be James Cook right now. He's being drafted as running back 30. And I know the Bills running back usually doesn't have a lot of involvement in the passing game, and you have the Josh Allen who steals all of the touchdowns at the goal line.
Yes.
But I think he's a value right now at running back 30. The reports from camp have been very positive. He has been catching a lot of passes in camp, and he's being utilized a lot. People talk about like Damian Harris and so on, but I don't think Damian Harris is all that. Damian Harris probably suffers more from Josh Allen because he's a prototypical goal line back who should be used in the short yardage situation. And I think James Cook will be heavily utilized this year. And I really think he could be a very high running back too. So being drafted as a mid running back 3, I think there's a lot of value here with his current ADP.
That's pretty good. Go ahead. What do I think about what?
James Cook.
I have so many mixed feelings about him. You touched on a lot of things that I would be concerned about. So, Josh Allen is going to take a bunch of the goal line work. That's just a given. And James Cook is very undersized. So I don't know if James Cook is going to be worth it.
I mean,
because you need receiving upside and you need touchdown upside, and he has one of those, not both of them. But I guess that's also why he's going where he's going.
Yeah, I mean, it's 5'11", 200, right around. So, not terrible size. Ran a 4.42, which is a 94th percentile. I mean, he has a decent profile. I think last year it was somewhat encouraging, and the talk from the coaches were that they wanted him involved more down the end. And he ended up with around 500 yards, rushing, around 21 receptions, 180 receiving yards, and 3 total touchdowns. I mean, he was the backup to Devin Singletary for most of the time, but I think he really came up as of late, and I think he can continue that this year. I'm excited for him right now, and I have him in a few places, especially in our 16-team league, and I'm excited from the prospect right now.
Now, something we haven't talked about is Miami's high octane offense. Tyreek's going really high. Jalen Waddle's going really high. What do you decipher from Miami's offense?
I mean, they're both drafted as wide receiver ones, so I'm kind of out on that. I don't think both will finish as wide receiver ones. You
Fair.
have the injury history with Tua, and I mean, I don't think an offense can repeat what they did last year. I think coaches will find some slight things on tape that can counter what they did. But I mean, Tua is being drafted as a QB1. With the injuries, I think that's a bit iffy. I don't think I would touch him as a QB1, especially being drafted over the likes of Anthony Richardson, for example,
Oh my
Kirk
God.
Cousins, for example, Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones will probably be a better play, and he's being drafted around 20 slots lower than Tua. I mean, even Gino, with the offense that he has around him, he's being drafted around 20 picks later.
Gino? You're saying Gino over Tua?
The player who had the better completed percentage in the league last year, yeah. And he was a QB5 in fantasy, wasn't he?
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, and he's being drafted 20 slots lower than Tua, so yeah, I think I'd be on board with that.
oh, if I can get on board with
I
that.
mean, I would probably throw a dart at a running back from the Dolphins. I don't think any of them are being drafted that high. Probably Etienne is the one going higher, yeah, at running back 41. And even that, I mean, if it pans out and the player gets the job, between Etienne, Jeff Wilson, and Ray Mostert, they're all drafted around running back 40 to 50. So I'd probably take a slice at that. Probably the least expensive because they're all tiny
Like
backs.
Jeff Wilson, it seems like he gets a lot of goal line work, and no matter where he goes, he gets like touches. So I think Jeff Wilson out of all that, I mean, A. Kane is the flashy pick, and he probably definitely has the most upside, but I don't know if I'd want the touchdown upside. That's just me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, A-Chain is probably, as you said, the flashier pick.
Yes.
And the difference isn't that big from like Ray Mostert. It's still like 20 picks or so that's about 3 rounds. So I probably take Ray Mostert or Jeff Wilson. They're around the same. One is being drafted 148 and the other 152nd. So I probably take one of them instead of A-Chain at around 127. But yeah, any one of the three, I think it's a good dart throw, and I think if you hit on the right one, it will pan out. I think you will have a running back two on your ends until they get injured, if they get injured, I guess. But yeah, I wouldn't touch the wide receiver. At least both wide receivers, I would take a shot at one, but I would make a stack from Tua and maybe the wide receiver, which is possible. You could get like Hill, he drops maybe a little bit, and you get a late round pick, a late first round pick, and then you can probably pick Waddle at the flip, and then you get Tua a bit later. You could probably make that stack, but I don't think it's worthy because I see some regression from that offense.
That's fair. Is there any more players from the AFC you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm done. I have all of mine talked about. I think we have addressed all of them. So yeah, those are my main ones that I think are being underrated or overrated. So yeah,
There
those
is
are.
one team we haven't talked about, and I think it's quite fitting that we haven't talked about this team. If you haven't figured it out yet, it's the Tennessee Titans and how boring their offense is.
You
So
draft there.
you draft? Yeah, exactly. You draft Derrick Henry.
You don't think about it. He's old. He's whatever. He has a lot of mileage. It doesn't matter. You don't try to predict. I've learned that you don't try to predict his downfall. So you just draft Derrick Henry, and that's that.
Yeah, pretty much. Do you think D-Hop has any chance of being productive?
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's being drafted as what? Running a wide receiver 20. So pick 51. That's around what? 12 or yeah, around 5 pick. So yeah, I think he has the upside to be better than that. I think that offense will probably support one wide receiver like they did with AJ Brown. I wouldn't touch Traylon Burks.
What? Treylon Burks for you?
I mean, Traylon Burks is a good player. I like them after year one. I didn't like them as much as a prospect. You know that I wasn't a big fan of, but he's right now being drafted as wide receiver 40, and I don't see that offense supporting that.
No way.
Two guys as wide receiver 40s. So yeah, I would probably avoid him. I would take
Here's
a small shot at Shake. He has good analytics, but I mean, I don't expect much. I've sold a few of my Cheeks shares as of late, especially in the 32 team league. I sold them yesterday. But I mean, in redraft, I think he is a fine pick down the line. As he's being drafted as around player 142. So yeah, probably take a slice at that, but nothing more than that.
That's fair. I think I've talked about everyone I want to talk about too. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you guys for listening. If you've listened to this point, subscribe, keep listening, and you guys know what to do. This has been Angelo. I will see you guys next time. Peace out. What's that, Alex? I didn't hear you.
Oh, I just said peace. Bye, guys.
Exactly. All right. See ya.